Hello everybody! Can you hear me? Welcome everyone to today's stream. I hope you all have been doing well. I am very sleepy. I'm just gonna fall right asleep. Yeah, so today we'll be reading a little more into my Star vs. Ague. This is, I wasn't able to get everything prepared to do, like, what are those things called? An iceberg kind of thing is what I wanted to do originally, where we're gonna really go deep into the behind the scenes of the Ague. But I didn't have time to, like, pull everything together on time for that one. So instead, we're just gonna be reading a couple of stories that exist within my universe, and then later we will do the deep dive. And then soon enough we will return to reading other people's agues of their Queens of Muni and stuff. And for today's stream, I do not have a whole slideshow prepared like I did for the last Star vs. stream. I did not pull together something, so you'll just have to look at me, my pretty little face, while you listen to me reading the story. Okay, let's see, what do I gotta do? So we'll be starting with so all of these exist within kind of a sub-series that is called, what's it called again? The World That Happens in the Shadows. And if you want to go and read the Hit List Mystery, so that is some of that behind the scenes kind of stuff that I'm talking about, the really deep in there lore. You can find that on my DeviantArt, RaspberryBeryl. And you can also find a lot of art for this series there. But we're gonna start. I think we're gonna get through all 5 stories that I want to tell today. But if we don't, we'll just pick them up on another day. But we're gonna start with this one called The Tale of Serendipity. And I will try to remember trigger warnings, but I have not written them all down, so it's basically just relying on my memory. And this one just has some death, basically. Okay. Let me make sure the casual music is playing still. I can't hear it, but it says it's playing, so that's good. Okay. The Tale of Serendipity. I'll just go ahead and read some of the description / thing. Anyway, okay. Starting this series with a big mystery, this is a short tale that doesn't give you much, but is meant to confuse you and make you start asking questions. Not everyone takes the center stage, but everyone has some sort of story, even if they can't remember it. Part 1 of, and then there's some spooky text that you can't really read, you have to decipher it. Okay. The tale of Serendipity starts in the butterfly sovereignty, high in the skies of their kingdom, where the royal princess heir was born to her parents Empress Estrella and King Cyrus. Serendipity, a Iridae butterfly, named after the peace their kingdom had known for many years, took her place amongst the throne. From the moment of birth, her people loved and adored her, and she did all she could to help her people blossom in merriment. She lived a happy childhood among her 3 sisters and 2 brothers, bearing her symbols of Netoplia, signaling her out as their magical successor. And also, remember, please forgive me if I stutter, hesitate, or mispronounce anything, and for any noises in the background. Okay, I am not going to pronounce all these fancy words, and I feel so ashamed, but, you know, at least I can come up with them to write them out. Okay, back to the story. She partook in her kingdom's merits in life, smiling throughout her day as she roamed the city streets. Life of a princess was much easier after the peace with the monsters was made, and so her only real duty while still preparing to ascend to the throne was to know her people and to practice her magic. As well as enjoying the company of her people and friends, she especially enjoyed the time she spent with her dear friend Zagreus, traveler of the kingdoms, with whom she met in the castle forest path, who was on their way to report their newest findings from their journeys. Serendipity often met with Zagreus, who she jokingly nicknamed Nemesis, within the meadows, hearing of their journeys, hoping one day she could see it for herself and get introduced to the other friends Zagreus would bring. By the age of 14, Serendipity was betrothed to a boy of the name of Zachariah, prince from across the kingdom. She loved his humor and his golden hair, and he, her hair of the sky and wondrous smile. They would be wed less than 2 years later, on the princess's 16th birthday. Serenlithity would rise to the next level of the throne when she turned 18, giving her the power to rule, but her mother still bore the title of the Empress. It was later that year that she would give life to her first child, a daughter they named Trinity. Along with her other first daughter, she would later bear 2 sons, Wyatt and Theo, and later her last daughter, Serenity, named after herself by the time she was 24. It would be 2 years later that they got a surprise attack from an unknown enemy. Serenlithity did what she could to protect and gather her people, and then ran fast to protect her family. Her mother took Wyatt and Serenity to keep them safe, but Serenlithity couldn't find her last 2 children. Zagreus, who was aiding in defeating the threat, told her they were last seen in the gardens. She would find them near the start of the hedge maze, where they weren't supposed to go without an adult. But they weren't scared of a challenge or to go against authority. She grabbed them and they started making their way out. When they heard the sound of running against the grass and the moving of bushes, they instead ran further into the maze, hoping to hide and not be found. They were far in, and Serenlithity was sure they wouldn't be caught. That was until they noticed the arrows flying towards them. Trinity was managing to get ahead, but Theo kept tripping. Serenlithity told Trinity to pick him up and run as fast as she could, it was there that there would be a good hiding place ahead in a stone building under the floor. While they ran, she summoned her magic and started fighting the archers off. She was faring very well until an arrow flew into her shoulder, where she fell, being shot several more times, and bled out within the maze. Eventually, the attackers were defeated. The kingdom held strong. It appeared as if there wasn't much damage and barely any casualties. They were relieved, but then Zagreus emerged from the maze with a safe Trinity and Theo, but with no Serenlithity. Zagreus told them that she was killed, fighting vigorously to protect her children. There would be no body brought forward, as if it disappeared, but the kingdom could feel the truth and took Zagreus' word. The kingdom held a large funeral for their princess, mourning her joyous demeanor and face. They sent a burning ship, acting as a casket, filled with her favorite things, down the stream, in honor of their dear Serenlithity. Floating down a river in limbo, her mind becoming numb, the princess became a stranger, and she opened up her eyes. And that, I think I might have actually already read this story on the channel before, but I really wanted to do it live. This story was the first story in this mini-series published in October of 2021. So, it's been a while. And we're gonna read one more story, and then we're gonna get into some spoiler territory for the Hit List Mystery, which, if you haven't seen, will get pretty deep. The origin of... Okay, The Chronicle of Oblivion. Let me see, what were the spoilers for this one? I'm pretty sure this one is a trigger warning for suicide. But besides that, I think it's pretty good. And there's also some death, but it's pretty tame. It's pretty tame. There's not a lot of details. Okay. The Chronicle of Oblivion. Published December 21st, 2021. The Chronicle of Oblivion Butterfly is quite scarce due to little being known about her. She was part of the 6th generation of the butterfly family, the 3rd daughter and youngest of 4 children to Her Royal Majesty. Her oldest sister, the royal heir, Demetria, was swept away to prepare her for her future duties. Her brother Darius sent to become the most regal knight and to marry connecting the kingdoms, while little Oblivion and her older sister Dolia were kept locked away from the rest of their family, in a house to the side of the castle where they occasionally got to interact with the future lords and ladies, but spent most of their lives living among the ladies-in-waiting and the servants. Dolia Butterfly, second child, was born as second chance for if her sister were to come to fall, and should she need to step forward. Her name literally meaning second, due to the slim chance of her rise to the throne. She was allowed to leave and interact more than the younger sister, but was still kept away so nothing would take or taint her, only to come out when she was needed. Oblivion was born for the purpose to be the second or replacement for her brother Darius, but she was born a girl. The queen immediately threw her away, naming her Oblivion for nothingness, forgotten, and out of mind. She was 5 years younger than Dahlia, who was one of the only ones to care for her through her life. They were their own family, mostly only having each other. In a twist of fate, they both shared the same birthday, signifying their bond. Once she was 4 years old, Dahlia decided to give her a new name, Lydia, meaning miracle. And so, they lived for each other. For what else did they have? In truth, they did not have the worst relationship with their siblings. They only saw Demetria when they were called for special royal events. She was kind, but knew not how to talk to her sisters. Lydia knew Darius much better. He would occasionally come to their abode, celebrate their birthday with them. It was scarce and far between, but it was wonderful. Sadly, it usually became tainted quickly by Lydia's idea that nobody loved her, and that they were all going to leave her. She would sit happily with a heart full of love as her brother would brush her hair, but the moment he was gone, a switch was flipped and she loathed him, for, of course it wasn't real. Nobody could ever love me. Dahlia was always there to try to assure her, tell her she'd never leave. She was loved, and was there for her and to help her through her meltdowns. And so although there was pain, although there was suffering and unfairness, they were happy. It all came to a change when Lydia was 10 and Dahlia 15. Demetria was well on her way to the throne with no issue, only a few years to go, unless their mother decided to hog it for herself, that is. Lydia feared for Dahlia's position. Once her oldest sister took the throne, what use would Dahlia be to her majesty? Her sister assured her that it didn't matter. If she was thrown away to not be seen or leave, then so be it. All that mattered was that they had each other. Unfortunately, it all came to an end when later that year, Dahlia was permitted to leave so she could attend a ball in her sister's honor. Lydia was left alone that night, not much to do, just sit and wait, and try to not let her thoughts overwhelm her. Even locked within the house, though, she could hear the sound of horses pacing, of people running, but there was nothing she could do but sit and wait, and hope whatever foe was out there would not come near. She was informed later that night that by one of the ladies that there was an assassination attempt on Demetria, and Dahlia was injured in turn, and would return once she was cleared. To her dismay, that did not mean soon, as days passed. They had made it sound minor, like the problem was quick to put to rest, but her sister still didn't return. She demanded answers, to see her, for the truth. No matter what they told her, she knew it couldn't be true. They said Dahlia mercifully chose to throw herself in front of her sister to save her life, but Lydia knew that could never be. No, it had to be that they threw her towards, made her be the shield they saw her as. Born as the second chance, but who needs that second chance if you sacrifice it instead? It would take several agonizing weeks, fearing the worst, and if worse came, why wouldn't they just tell her? It came to an end eventually, though. Waking in the night to the sound of stumbling and the door opening, there was Dahlia. She stumbled into the room, clearly still in pain and hurt, falling into her sister's bed. Lydia asked what had happened, and why wasn't she okay, and why was she here? Dahlia simply hesitantly said, "I needed to be here for our birthday. I knew you couldn't be alone." She stumbled over to her sister's arms to hug her, then pulled back, handing her a small bouquet of lilies and 3 black roses. "I love you, okay?" she smiled, as she fell forward once again into her sister's arms. And through a cruel twist of fate, it was their birthday. Lydia was 11, Dahlia was 16, and Dahlia was dead. Oblivion stared at the flowers and the wall in bewilderment, then to her sister, truly grasping what had just happened. She shook her sister, trying to wake her up, but it was no use. Oblivion shook and wailed, calling out for the only person that always loved her, who said they'd never leave her, but they were gone. She was alone. Eventually, they came to stop her cries, to take her sister's body away. A few days later, she saw her mother for the first time in years, briefly at Dahlia's funeral, and all she said was, "Thank you, number 2, and happy birthday." She paid no mind to the 11-year-old girl who lost her family, whose birthday it had also been. In the months following, Oblivion sadly stayed alone. Darius had tried to see and comfort her, but it was short-lived, for she told herself she would not fall victim to the false love and mockery. She had always had trouble keeping the voices in her head at ease, quiet, but she had always had Dahlia there, and now she didn't. Oblivion had always been afraid of and hated mirrors, for she hated how she looked. When she'd see her reflection, she'd try to convince herself it was someone else, and sometimes yell at the girl. After her sister's death, it got worse, though. She grew more angry and started to see the girl, her reflection, outside of the mirror. The mirror girl was almost always friendly and kind, although sometimes harsh. In the truth, the mirror girl was simply Oblivion's thoughts, given a body to help her better hear and understand. But when you have thoughts like Oblivion's, it's better not to hear them, to find some way to shut them out. Once Oblivion's time of anger started to die out, came the dark death of Oblivion, of feeling sad, blank nothingness. She then started to carve into her skin, marking the months every few weeks, for the start of a new month in the state of Oblivion, a new month without her sister. Come her birthday the next year, once again few but still some come to celebrate Dolia in her birthday and death, all but forgetting about Oblivion. She supposes she can't quite blame Demetria. She probably didn't know. Her mother all but forgot, but Darius should know, should say. But maybe this is a sign of the truth, that it really was false, that she really was alone. When Her Majesty threw these celebrations, Oblivion knew the real thing she was celebrating, that she was celebrating her true trophy daughter, hard work, making it out, that the other died in her stead. She shouldn't blame Demetria. Oh, but she did, and she loathed her. The cycle repeated again. Every night on her birthday, Oblivion burned one of the black roses, while wishing for her other half a happy birthday. Oblivion continued to seclude herself, only talking to Mir and sometimes the friends she brought. Sometimes they asked her to do things, but she had no need or want. She pushed the darker thoughts away, for it wasn't time for that. It was on the eve of her 14th birthday, 3 years later. She always liked the number 3, and finally she thought perhaps now there wasn't really anything left for her here. Mir had proposed a plan, and she didn't see why not, and so on the eve of her 14th birthday, she snuck out of their prison home. She snuck her way into the room where they had kept Dolia, and she prepared for a midnight strike. As she stared out the window, finally getting a view of the kingdom she never and would never get to know, never was to rule, she smiled. She pulled out the last black rose behind her ear and prepared to go home, to see Dolia again. The hour struck. The 79th, she lit the rose behind her ear and let herself fall into oblivion. One of her last diary entries, a few days before her death, she wrote about how peculiarly the servant Z knocked into her, pricking her with what seemed a pin, and whispered in her ear, "Do not listen, do not talk to ghosts, and do not try to defy fate." And that was the short story, The Chronicle of Oblivion. Yay! I forgot the self-harm trigger warning, sorry. Okay, and now we're on to the origin of fate. Here we go. Spoiler territory for the Hit List Mystery Series. I guess I could read A Lost Girl's Home first. I'm trying to think if that's good. I think I'll save A Lost Girl's Home. Okay. The origin of fate. Let's see. Are there any trigger warnings? Okay. Trigger warning for death and mentions of abuse. The origin of fate. Chapter 1. Zagreus. So just who was this Zagreus person? The little girl asks. Well, my dear Hope, her mother responds, that is a long and complicated story. Is it one you're sure you're ready to hear? Yes, 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 the girl responds. I need to understand why our people spend so much devotion to this figure. Well then, her mother smiles, let us start at the beginning, in a universe far from ours. Zagreus Asteria Butterfly was the child to the Queen of Red. They had hair the purple of wine, eyes of violets, and planets on their cheeks. Their name meant Hunter, a symbol of the war and conquest their mother had won. They were her only child, for the Queen of Red simply needed an heir. Zagreus barely knew their father, only having met him a few times. He seemed to just disappear one night and then visit infrequently when their mother wasn't around. They always thought their parents must have fought, for that's all the Queen of Red seemed to do. She fights, and she kills, and she conquers, and she commands. and Zagreus was nothing like her, no matter what their mother tried to do to change her. The Queen of Red would beat and hit and scream at her child for not being stronger. Strength is the most important thing you can have. You need to toughen up, you disappointment. Zagreus thought their mother should really just have adopted a child, honestly. One more like her, one that she wanted. Zagreus was weak and shy and scared. They could never be their mother or the child their mother wanted. Zagreus had no hope for their cruel world. Zagreus could never forget the sight of blood, for it seemed to follow their mother anywhere she went. Their mother wasn't always bad, though. She had moments where she was loving, where she cared for her, called them her sweet little bug, but sadly those were far and few between. Zagreus wished for the face of their mother when their eyes were not overcome with red. From a young age, Zagreus learned to control their shadow abilities, often using it to hide their face within the shadows and avoid being seen. It was one day when Zagreus was 6. They had been sneaking out of their room and stealing books from their mother's office lately, mostly history books that their mother did not want them to have. Zagreus learned lots of their family and the cruel world that they lived in from these books. Conqueror after conqueror, a few nice queens here and there, queens that were fine, nice even, like their grandmother, but were killed for mistakes that should have been forgiven. Zagreus was reading one of these history books, hidden in the shadows, when they heard their mother and another scream. She was in one of her meetings with one of her advisors, most likely them trying to calm her fire and reason with her, but Zagreus knew it was for nothing. Zagreus tried to ignore the screams and focus on their book, but it was too much and too hard. They hated when their mother got mad. Zagreus pulled their knees to their chest and tried to be small, to quell the noise. Time passed. Zagreus didn't know how long, but eventually they flinched upon the office door opening. Zagreus quickly shifted into a shadow and hid in the walls. "I know you're in here," their mother roared. Zagreus' eyes widened at the sight, but not unexpected, of their mother covered in blood. "What did I tell you about sneaking in here and stealing my stuff? You were to stay in your room and behave, little girl." Zagreus clenched their eyes and tried to sneak out, but they made a noise and their mother grabbed at their arm. "Got you!" "Ah!" Zagreus screamed. "You know I'm a shadow as well, dearie, and so it's easier for me to spot you. You aren't fooling me. Now tell me what you stole this time." Nothing," Zagreus whined, trying to shake free. "It's nothing to lie. It's wrong to lie to your mother, girl, and more to your queen." Zagreus didn't know what to do. Their mother sounded mad. They didn't really understand. It was just a book. Zagreus was bored up in their room with nothing to do. Their mother's eyes of blood were bright right now, though, so Zagreus didn't want to be anywhere near her. They quickly bit down on the hand and ran. "Ah!" their mother shouted. "Zagreus, you will pay for this later, but fine. I needed to deal with this fool of an advisor anyways. You get off for now, but later, mark my words, young lady." Zagreus ran and ran, not caring what their mother had said. They needed to hide, especially if more death was to take place in the main hall. Zagreus ran to the bottom floor, still holding onto their book, just trying to get away faster from the violence as possible. Get away as far away from the violence as possible. They spotted a door and ran to it, quickly opening and closing it. It led down a short flight of stairs. They followed and then left into the nearest corner, hitting their head against the wall. "Huh?" they heard someone say. Zagreus peeked out of the corner and looked around the room they stumbled upon. It was bleak and dark, empty except for a couple chairs, a dagger, a table, and in the middle of the room, a giant cage. Zagreus was curious, and also scared, but slowly made their way closer to the cage. They widened their eyes upon seeing a person inside, a woman. "Hello there," the woman said. Zagreus noticed they had marks on their cheeks, as well. "Is someone there? I'm not supposed to be visited for another week, you know," she said, stern yet tiredly. Zagreus really didn't know what to think of the prisoner, not used to actually seeing one. They thought her mother just killed most of them. The woman looked kind, though. "Hi," Zagreus quietly said. The woman's eyes flickered. Where are you?" she said, looking around. Zagreus realized they were still in their shadow form, and so shifted back. Now the woman's eyes really widened. "You," she said. "Me?" Zagreus questioned back. "You're the princess. Hello. What are you doing here?" "I'm not a princess. I'm a royal," Zagreus looked down and said quietly. "Oh, Sorry, the prisoner said, having heard them. Zagreus smiled. The prisoner was kind and polite. Mom was mad, and I wanted to get away somewhere quiet, and this place looked like an okay spot. Interesting, the woman said. It was then quiet as Zagreus sat down and opened their book again, beginning to read, not caring at all for the prisoner anymore. But, you're Zagreus, right? The prisoner asked. Zagreus sighed and smiled. Yep, that's me. They turned back to face the woman. And you, let's see. Zagreus started trying to think of a name. The woman had yellow hair and pink flowers on her cheeks. Hibiscus, they decided. Your name will be Hibiscus. Zagreus nodded, pleased with themselves and their choice. The prisoner just looked puzzled. I actually have a name. It's No, Zagreus cut them off. Mom said prisoners don't have names, so I just gave you one. It's Hibiscus. Oh, well, okay then, Hibiscus awkwardly smiled. Hibiscus, it's nice. A nice name. Thanks, Zagreus smiled, and then went back to their reading. No more words were said that day, and it was strange. Zagreus felt like they liked Hibiscus, though, and they liked the quiet of this room. Zagreus said a simple goodbye to Hibiscus, and then went back to their room, hoping the red will have died from their mother's eyes, and thankfully they were right. Zagreus still got punished and hit for biting and stealing, but things were okay. It wasn't that bad. Nothing they weren't used to. Zagreus would then start to often come to the room to meet with Hibiscus. It really was a wondrous spot, and Hibiscus grew more and more on them. The two of them really got along. From the start, they didn't talk much, just a few exchanged words, but it was a welcome change of kindness for Zagreus in a world of pain. Eventually, the two started talking more, and Zagreus would often show off the book they got. Hibiscus had a lot of knowledge too, so sometimes Zagreus didn't even need to steal a book. They just had Hibiscus tell them stories about and explain the history of their world. It was within and from these books, Hibiscus' words, and the words they recalled their father telling them once. They learned that they were a princess blessed from the stars and the comets, that they were supposed to be some grand queen who would make a mark and change the status quo. Not even Hibiscus really understood what being a comet queen was, but told what she knew, and through research, Zagreus learned that the comets gifted powers, gifted coping mechanisms, you could say, to people in danger, and who would one day need one. If you were blessed by a comet, it would give you the power that would one day be your saving grace. Zagreus wondered what their gift was, and when their time of need would be. Hibiscus became the shining light that Zagreus looked forward to every day. They would talk and laugh and smile. Zagreus was able to actually avoid and ignore their mother and her red deathly power. Zagreus was happy for once. Zagreus was 12 when it happened. They thought that they had learned the guard schedule well, and they knew when and when not to be near Hibiscus' cell, but today they were wrong. They had gone to talk to her, all happy and excited to tell her of the newest novel they had been reading. But it was the wrong time. Oh, Hibiscus, they walked in and said. I just read the most emotional, heartbreaking novel, and I really wanted to discuss it with you. How are you two? Zagreus then stopped with widened eyes as they looked at their mother holding a dagger to Hibiscus' chest. Zagreus, both voices said. One her mother, laced with anger and questions. The other Hibiscus, laced with concern. What in the world's name are you doing here? The Queen of Red shouted. Zagreus trembled back, scared and unsure what to say. Speak to me, you brat. Don't speak to them that way, Hibiscus surprisingly spoke up. She is my daughter, and I will speak to her any way I want. And what do you even know, prisoner? I know a lot about them, actually, Hibiscus smirked. Have you been poisoning my daughter? The Queen yelled. Apparently, Hibiscus started. I know a lot more than you, because they don't like being called a daughter. Zagreus weakly smiled, surprised at Hibiscus standing up for them, but all too afraid still of their mother and the dagger that she held. Zagreus, answer me. How long have you been visiting this prison Welch? Why does she claim to know you? We're friends, they weakly said. Friends? Friends? A ruler has no friends. Isn't that what I taught you? I always knew you were sneaking off, but if I had known you were visiting this monster, I would not have allowed it, and would have ended her sentencing sooner. Zagreus saw the glint of red in their mother's eyes and screamed, No, don't hurt her. Zagreus, Hibiscus said, trying to get her attention. Shut up, princess, the queen shouted back. I will treat this prisoner however I like, for she owes me an eternal debt of suffering. Zagreus felt a wave of confidence within their fear. What did she ever do to you, Mom? I've been friends with her for almost 6 years. She is one of the nicest people I have ever met. Far nicer than you. You are the monster. If only our people had a ruler as kind as a person as Hibiscus is. The Queen of Red's face went blank, and she stabbed the dagger into Hibiscus's chest. Don't you dare ever say anything like that again to me. Zagreus and Hibiscus screamed. The Queen of Red smiled, eyes filled with red poison in a snap. If you must know, daughter, the one you call Hibiscus has caused me a lifetime of pain. She took my mother and father from me, and she is the monster I must unfortunately call a sister. And Zagreus realized their mistake. They couldn't believe it. All this time the two were sisters, but one locked in a cage in the other's command. If Zagreus understood history correctly, then Hibiscus, that wasn't her name, was queen once, and the Red Queen had conquered her. Hibiscus's eyes were wide. I love you, Zagreus, okay? Now, run. You can make a mark, make a change. I believe in you. Zagreus had majorly disrespected their mother, claiming her sister better for the throne, and now they were both going to die for it, for being friends, family. It seemed any family they had or made, their mother took from them. They hadn't seen their father since they were young, and he introduced them to stories, and now they had a feeling it wasn't by his choice that he didn't return. Zagreus looked with tears in their eyes as the Queen of Red plunged their dagger into their aunt's heart, and she fell to the floor. Zagreus was scared and horrified. Zagreus didn't know what to do. The Queen of Red turned to face her, pulling the dagger out of the corpse's chest. Her eyes of blood glowed in the darkness and misery. Well, you heard her, she smiled. Run, little bug. And so Zagreus ran. They ran up the stairs, not knowing how long they had. Zagreus didn't know what to do, but they had an idea of what could save them. They could never outrun their mother, but maybe they could be blessed with a gift. Please, they prayed, if I'm going to get my gift, now would be a great time. They ran to their mother's office, turning into a shadow quickly, then looked around for it. It had to be here somewhere. Come on, they said. And then they saw it, the royal wand waiting on its pedestal. Zagreus lunged for it, just in time to hear their mother's shouts. I'm going to kill you, you little girl. You have been nothing but a disgrace to me, and choosing my sister over me, that was the final straw. Zagreus' fingers touched the wand as they thudded to the floor, and it transformed into a pair of shears? Zagreus didn't know what it meant. They had no time to think, but this was their salvation. They held their shears, cut into the air, and portaled away. And that was the end of The Origin of Fate, Chapter 1. Let's see, what time is it? I can't read the clock. Okay, I think we have time for at least one more, if not the whole series of Origin of Fate up to this point. I still have to write more. It's not over yet. There's still a lot more of The Origin of Fate to come, but there's a lot more setting things up to do first before the next chapter can be released. But that was part 1 of The Origin of Fate. Okay, drinking some water quickly. Drink. The Origin of Fate, Part 2, A New Home. Wait, so what happened to them? The little girl asked. Just listen, her mother smiled. Zagreus' prayers were answered, and they were gifted their gift. But how is that a gift? How did they get away? It was just a pair of scissors. No, my child, their mother said. It was no ordinary pair of scissors, but a magical pair that allowed Zagreus to portal away to a different place in a different time. Wow, the child oohed. That's so cool. What happens next? Their mother smiled once more. Listen, and you shall find out. Zagreus portaled away that day in fear of their mother and came out upon a forest where they just kept running. Eventually, they grew tired though and hoped that their gift would truly keep them safe. They found a cave and settled down for the night in it. When they sat in the cave, after trying and failing to make a fire, they examined their shears, their wand. They had never been trained in magic and only ever saw it when their mother was splattering blood from someone's body with it. They wondered how long it would take to them to learn, and would they eventually too be corrupted by magic and turn to the dark. As Zagreus tried to sleep there, they cursed themselves for not recognizing and connecting that Hibiscus was their aunt and for not saving her. their only friend, family they had left. They thought about the history that they had learned, the past queens, the cruelty of their kingdom, mostly people who abused their power of magic and made innocents suffer. Zagreus swore they would never let magic corrupt them, would use it minimally, and would never use it for bad. Zagreus lived a few more days in the cave until they eventually got too cold and sick. They knew not how to make a fire or how to use a spell, and so they laid, surrendering to the cold. They thought they heard a voice once, though, one that got closer. They wondered if it was an angel here to take them away to the next life. And then they heard a yelp, saw a girl, before they fainted from the cold. When Zagreus opened their eyes, they were in a warm home, a warm couch. They groggily looked around, scared of where they may have ended up. Did they walk here, or did someone take them? They had no memory. Their questions were quickly answered as a girl with brown hair and crescent marks peeked her head from around the corner, and then smiled at them. "Oh, you're awake," she said. Zagreus was scared, but hoped with all their heart that they had no reason to be. "Hello," they said. The girl smiled at them. She appeared to be not much older than Zagreus herself, maybe only a few years. "Mom, Dad," the girl shouted. Come here, the girl's awake." "Calm down, Ranger," Zagreus heard someone else say. A woman walked in, hair of blonde and hearts on her cheeks. Zagreus staggered. They don't know much, but they knew what cheek marks meant. They didn't know their family, but those marks meant that they were butterflies. Oh shoot, Zagreus didn't know what they should do. So they decided to beg. Please, they said. "Don't send me back to my mother, I beg you. She will kill me. I greatly disrespected her name. Please," they cried. The two strangers stared back at them in horror and shock. "We're not going to hurt you," the younger girl spoke. "Please don't be afraid." "Honey," the older spoke now, "are you okay? I can tell you're not, but please, tell us how we can help. Who are you?" Zagreus struggled speaking and breathing well. The older kneeled down near them and told them how to breathe, and so they did. "There," the older said. "Now." "Who wants nachos?" A man with a chef hat walked in. The room stared back at him grimly. "Dad," the girl said. "Oh, was this a bad time?" the man asked. Zagreus let out a short laugh. Despite still being scared, this was truly a weird occurrence. The older woman smiled. "Are you feeling better now, kiddo?" Yes, thank you," Zagreus quietly said. The young girl smiled. "Well, now that you're feeling better, I think an introduction is in order." She pulled her hand out. "Hi," she said. "I'm Tara, and these are my mom and dad." The two adults waved. Zagreus waved back. "And what's your name?" the girl, Tara, asked. Zagreus hesitated, but they felt safe. Maybe that was a flaw of theirs, feeling safe around people they just met, giving in too early, but it had worked before. "Hi, I'm Zagreus," they said. The room looked at them questionably. "Well, that's a weird name," Tara smirked. Zagreus' smile faltered. "Tara," her mother scolded, "don't be so rude." "Sorry, Mom." The mother turned to her. "Welcome, Zagreus. We're happy to have you. My name is Star Butterfly, but I kind of think you might have been able to tell that." Zagreus thought for a moment. She didn't know any cousins or anything named Star, only one queen, who lived decades ago. And now that Zagreus thought about it, the woman did match the description from the books. This was Queen Star, the predecessor to her kind cousin Queen Meteora, who could bear no children and so passed the throne, and so that meant her gift had set her back in time. She had no need to fear her mother, for her mother did not yet exist. I could, Zagreus lied. "But I don't know you," Star said questionably, "and I'm sorry, but we've sort of had this problem before of people with cheek marks showing up and me not realizing they were butterflies at first." "Oh yeah, like when Miss Hades turned out to be Meteora," the man said. He must be King Marco, Zagreus thought. "Yeah, my fault," Star said, "but I swear I never seen you at any of the family dinners. Kid, we just found you in the woods and you freaked out, so who are you really?" And what was Zagreus supposed to say? They couldn't lie about being a butterfly now, but would these people understand? They decided to just tell the truth. "I'm from the future," they said. "Whoa, cool," Tara smiled. Star and Marco just nodded. Okay, they said. "Well, we've messed with time a bit before. Not the same, but similar. Do you need help getting home?" "No," Zagreus quickly yelled. Star, Marco, and Tara all looked at them in shock. Shoot, Zagreus may have messed this up. Whoa, calm down, kid. What's going on here?" Marco asked. I can't go home, Zagreus spoke. I just escaped. The future is awful. Please don't send me back, they cried. Well, then we won't send you back, Star smiled. You can stay here with us, or we'll go and see if we can knock some peace into your future. But I won't be setting you into some danger. Zagreus smiled. Zagreus cried. Zagreus felt safe. Terra and Zagreus talked a lot the next coming days, and really got to know each other. Zagreus learned that Terra was currently 14, 2 years older than them, technically, and that the family was on their vacation cottage when they found Zagreus. Terra said that Zagreus was a weird long name, and resolved to just call them Z, and Z liked it. Terra asked about the future. Z wasn't able to offer much, besides that it was awful. In response, Terra started questioning what would happen now that Z was here. Would the future change, or was this some cool time loop that was always meant to be? It made Z start questioning it themselves, and if they could change things. They asked Terra, if you could change one thing, what would it be? Terra didn't know how to answer. She had no idea how history was supposed to go, and so had no idea what was and wasn't considered a change. She didn't say one thing, though. I'd like to be queen. She did say one thing, though. I'd like to be queen, Terra had said, and Z nodded, somewhat confused. Why? Z asked. Aren't you already going to be queen? No, Terra shook her head. I will not be queen. My sorta cousin Meteora is the current queen, and the butterfly family will now come from her. I shall never bear the throne. And that's when Z remembered it. In the history books, it said that after Queen Star, it had been Queen Meteora, and then after Meteora could bear no child, and wanted a life free of royalty with her love, she had given it up and it went to Terra's daughter Estrella, but Terra herself never was a queen. I'd love to be queen, Terra said, or at least be a bit more princessy. I want to learn magic like my mom, have royal teachings and lessons, but my parents aren't all about that. We only sometimes even live at the castle, and I'd really like to know what being royalty is really about. And I guess that doesn't necessarily mean being queen, but something. And Z knew if there was one thing they could change, it would be to let Terra become a queen. Weeks passed. The family traveled back to the main castle, where Z got to meet the others living there, such as former Queen Moon and King River. They almost asked about Eclipsa, before realizing that this time had already passed and she was locked away once more. The castle was wonderful, so much more lively than they had ever knew. Terra and her family were wonderful too. They all loved and joked and enjoyed each other so much, and Z was jealous of it. They wanted a loving family. As time passed, they wondered if Terra could be their sister though. You know, Terra had said one night, while they laid awake in their now shared room, I really think it's fate, or destiny, that you came to us and we met. Destin Z, Z tried to joke. Sounds funny. Terra laughed. Oh gosh, we have got to work on your humor. That was awful. You have a lot to learn from my parents. And Z smiled. It had been a few months now, and Z really did feel at home with them. They decided to open up more to Terra that night, about themselves, their life, their mother, and Terra listened, like only one other person had ever had. I miss you, Hibiscus, Z thought. Terra smiled and brought Z into a hug. I love you, Fate. I'm so sorry, and thank you. Fate? Z had questioned, and Terra chuckled. It's now your special name. I love giving special names to things I love. It's something I do. My dad, my papilla. My mother, Enchanto. My grandparents, Daffodils. And now you, Z. Zagreus are my Fate, and my sibling. And Z cried like they had never had before, and they had found a home. Doo-doo-doo. And that was The Origin of Fate! Part 2, A New Home. Yay! Clap, 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 clap. I don't remember how long the rest of these are, but I don't feel like they're that long. Let me get some more water. Just a second. Oh, my voice is already dying. Okay, on to part 3. Origin of Fate, part 3. Serendipity and Phantom Res. Aw, this is so sweet, the girl said. I was really worried for Z there, but they ended up finding a happy home. Yes, they did, the girl's mother smiled. But you see, there is so much more to the story. Far more was to come, and Zagreus had far more they needed to do. The days and months were not always easy. Despite spending so much of their time reading, there was a lot they didn't know. They tried going to Earth, but it was all just too overwhelming for the young royal, and so they stayed in their castle and was attempted to be taught from there. Star, Moon, and even Queen Meteora tried to help to teach the girls about being royalty and about magic. Terra excelled. She was a natural, not even needing a wand, almost too powerful. But Z, not so much. Z did their best to fit in, but it was hard. They commonly became jealous when seeing Terra and her parents getting along, laughing and joking together. They were a perfect family, and Z didn't feel like they belonged, no matter what the butterfly family told them. Z wished they could have had that with their own mother, their father, their hibiscus, and whatever other family they had left. They wished their future was not so cruel and bleak. Terra helped though. Whenever Z was feeling sad, their older sister was there to lift them up. Z envied her, how happy and confident Terra was. She had no fears, no annoyances, no sadness in sight. She was perfect. Terra did what she could to try to teach Z to smile and have hope in the world. Z only envied Terra more when she learned how many friends Terra had, how popular she was amongst the royals, and Z envied that too. Z wanted to be loved, but they struggled to accept it, not like Terra did. Terra didn't always have time for Z, and Z tried not to let their anger and possessiveness get to them. Terra could have more friends. It was fine. Terra would be fine. Z would be fine. Terra would always have other time for Z. After 2 lovely years of living with the current butterfly family though, Z felt they needed more. They were 14, Terra 16, and having wanted to go back to Earth School, where Z did not feel they could follow, and so after permission from their new family, Z became a wanderer, wandering and voyaging the lands and dimensions and the times, looking for something that could truly complete their heart and life, like Terra and her family were for each other. With their voyages, they grew upon their magic. Using their wand, they might not have been able to do many things, but in what they could do, they excelled. Discovering different timelines and worlds, it was amazing. Z would travel worlds, staying there for some time, and then send messages back to Terra and her family of how they were doing. It was during a few months Z spent living in a certain world that Z met Serendipity, the princess of the timeline. They quite literally bumped into each other, the princess spilling the apples she was carrying. "Oh, I'm so sorry," Z had said. "Oh, it's no trouble," the princess replied back. "I was just in a hurry and wasn't looking where I was going. It's all my fault." Z helped pick up the apples and handed them back to the princess. They looked into her eyes, her wondrous long hair of sky, the shimmering pink she wore, the glow of her rosy face, the funny little marks upon her cheeks that almost looked like wardrobes. Z took it all in, felt something easy to name. Z was in love. "It was really no trouble at all," Z said to the 13-year-old princess, handing her the last of the apples. Serendipity smiled. "What's your name? Who are you?" she asked. Z felt a gush of confidence take over them. "My name is Zagreus, and I am a traveler, messenger, and voyager of this kingdom," Z bowed, "and I'm happy to serve your crown." Serendipity blushed. "No need for that. You may rise, fair soldier. I am not empress yet, but I accept and respect your loyalty to my mother's throne." And from there, they became friends, and Z's heart was set ablaze. They laughed, they sang, they teased. Z felt a confidence they had never felt before when they were around the princesses, only a small amount younger than themselves. They took to mind of all of Terra's teachings and did their best to make the princess smile. With this confidence came the confidence to tease as love might make you do, to compliment and to bestow upon gifts. Z loved to give their love banquets, bouquets of marigolds, daffodils, and blue violets. Serendipity bestowed the nickname Nemesis upon them, for the playful rivalry the two shared, for Z's shadow manipulation, and for the vagueness and justice Z held whenever someone seemed to step the wrong way into the princess's path. When Z returned home to tell their family of their travels and journey, they couldn't help but evaporate into petals and explain the times they had spent with Serendipity. They spilled their heart out to their sister Terra, who only smiled fondly listening to their sibling almost sing. "If you really feel this way, then I think you should go for it," Terra had said. Z was nervous though. But what if she isn't like me? What if she doesn't like me? They nervously asked their sister, looking for hope, serenity, and resolution in their qualm. "There's no better way than to try," Terra had said, "and hey, maybe I can help you. I'd love to meet this princess." And so that's where Z found themselves next. You have a sister? Serendipity asked, smiling. Yes, I do, Z responded. And I'd love for you to meet her, and for her to meet you. I know you'll get along. I would be delighted, Serendipity said. What's their name? And Z didn't know why, but they lied. Her name is Fathom Rez. Were they somehow ashamed? Were they protecting Tara, keeping her to themselves? They didn't know, but they lied. Oh, lovely. I can't wait, Serendipity said. You told her my name was what? Tara asked. Fathom Rez, Z said. It's kind of a nickname. I just never shared it with you. Tara nodded her head. Okay. Am I allowed to, say my real name, though, or not? Z bit their lip. I'm not really sure why, but I would prefer you didn't. Not yet. Is that all right? No, it's fine. Let's see. Fathom Rez. It means one who belongs to destiny. Tara smiled and looked at them. I love you too, Fate. And the siblings hugged. The next day, as Z was taking Tara through their portal to the realm of the Muni Empire, they met and said hello to Serendipity. Tara and her chatting lots about what they liked most about Zagreus. Then they all went to dress shopping, even if Z didn't really want to wear a dress that much. Serendipity then took them to meet their 3 sisters and 2 brothers, and lastly the 3 all ended up on a picnic together, enjoying each other's company. Tara, being the great older sister that she was, tried to help lead Z into making their confession to Serendipity by talking about their own love life and this librarian Alexander she was slowly falling for. The conversation started seeming to work, and Serendipity perked up. It was great, and Z was about to make their move, say the speech they had prepared, confess their love. But then Serendipity said it. Oh, I also have a special someone, a prince from a distant land, Zachariah. I will become betrothed to him in just a few weeks, on my 14th birthday. And Zagreus' heart fell and shattered. What? They asked. Oh, I haven't told you? Serendipity questioned. That's surprising. Well, yeah, I don't really know him, but I've heard many great things. We were specially matched by the matchmaker, and I just can't wait to meet him in a few weeks. She squealed. Oh, and I just can imagine us in a few years when we get married. Oh, and then later when we start a family. Oh, I can't wait. While Serendipity rambled on, Tara turned to her sibling and saw a single tear ran down Zagreus' cheek. Tara tried to tell them that there was still hope, and Z tried to hold on to their sister's words. Time continued to pass, and Z only hoped that eventually Serendipity might see them the way they saw her, that love might in fact blossom. Z continued traveling, moving on to more worlds, but always returning back to their sister and to Serendipity. They brought them both gifts, stories, and the 3 met up often just to talk. Time passed, hope rose and fell, and Serendipity did not see Zagreus as anything more than a friend, and her rival. On Serendipity's 16th birthday, she was wed, and Zagreus wept for the bride, for the family they would never have. And that was part 3 to the origin of fate, Serendipity and Fathom Rez. Do. Yay! One more part to go, and then we'll be all caught up. It's so exciting. But my voice is dying, and I can tell that I'm slurring my words. It doesn't help that I just got braces again, and so it's really hard to talk. Let's see. The Origin of Fate, Part 4, A Magical Cursed World. Let's see, are there any trigger warnings? And this one's gonna be a little filler, but it's important. Oh wait, the little girl said. This is actually quite sad. I know, her mother nodded. Things don't always go the way we want in life. Things aren't always easy, even for Zagreus. Well, were they at least okay? The girl asked. They found a way to be happy, right? Silence. Let's just continue on with the story, and you will see, their mother told them. Zagreus tried to live on, but the hole in their heart, their love, would never be sealed. It was hard for Zagreus to continue being around Serendipity, and it wasn't like she had the time to herself anymore. She was always off with her husband. So Z started visiting less and less. They still spent time together. Serendipity granted Z the title of knight, but it hurt too much in the end to stay by her side. Z started to then truly start using their time-traveling abilities, but not traveling timelines, but through time itself. They spent what felt like years watching as history happened before them, experiencing it personally. They saw the first queen rise, the first queen fall, the first queen to be killed, then others. Cruel fates of death. They saw princesses cursed with wicked names and fates to be locked away. They saw a queen first stand for the rights of the Munian enemies, sent to be locked away before magic overcame her. They saw the castle fall and a new one rise, under a queen much more competent than the last. They saw the wand pass from mother to daughter, brother to sister, back then again to daughter. They watched as the monster carver killed by the dozens, then her daughter kill only slightly less from the opposite side, also fighting for her wicked love. They saw the crown be passed to an off-butterfly babe, and the cycle repeated anew. Queen after queen, war after war, daughter after mother, pain followed by suffering. And then they came to Tara, sweet, kind Tara, their sister, who had never made such mistakes, and would never get a chance to be, a cruel queen like all the rest. No queen was perfect, not even Queen Star, but Tara, she was the closest Z felt they would find. After their self-imposed journey through time, their exile to try to mend their aching heart, they retired back to the time they'd rather call their own. They returned back to their sister in love, and tried to see what was next. Tara tried to make time for them, but it wasn't enough, and it hurt to see Tara enjoying herself with others. Z felt like they should be the only one to be able to make Tara smile that way. All of Tara's grandest smile should come from Zagreus, and Zagreus alone. Z never did get over their jealousy, and now they felt like they had neither members of their small family's time. Z considered they could go visit their mother again, witness the cruelty of their ancestors leading up to them, but they didn't think that they could take it. It had been several years, but Z didn't think they could ever face their mother, the Queen of Red, again, or at least not yet, and Z didn't really want to see the apocalypse leading up to their birth. They didn't need to. They had read about and already seen enough cruelty to last them a lifetime, or maybe more. Then Z considered, though, if they didn't know what was next, why not just go and see? And so that's what Zagreus did. It hurt too much to simply live life with Serendipity, so they would simply watch from the shadows while time was on a speed. They watched Serendipity be crowned empress, then give birth to her first child. Time passed, Zagreus interacted few and far between. More children came, and Zagreus smiled but cried, happy for their love, but wishing it could be them. Z had a habit of naming timelines, just to help remember and sort them. Serendipity's was labeled Universe Utopia, because that's really what it was. There was no war, only peace, a divergent timeline from their own, a time where the great Queen Sebebina was never branded mad, and so much of the war and violence that Z had witnessed never took place. Only peace as their kingdom became sovereignty, and an empire. A queen became a kind empress, and they put their wands down. That, Z realized, was what they envied. A timeline of peace. And why was there peace? Because the Empress had made peace with their enemy. Because the sacred royal wand was given up and no more. There was no magic to be abused by its people. At least, not easily. Z continued being a watcher that they were. And then, when Serendipity was 26, Z, still in the body of an 18-year-old, 10 years after Serendipity was wed at 16, got sick and died. It was unknown what the sickness really was. At first, Z had learned that while on their travels and bouts of pain, while that they were not present and looking, someone had threatened the Empire, and as its protector, Serendipity picked up the magic wand for the first time in almost 100 years. The magic was too much for her body, and so it overcame her, leaving her to die. Zagreus cried upon the deathbed of the one-sided love. If only they had been there, they would have taken on the terrorists, the enemy, but they didn't. And now Serendipity was dead, all too soon. Zagreus stumbled back to their simple world of P0 and cried upon their own bed, waiting for Tara to return, not wanting to interrupt her from her happy, peaceful life. Tara should have no need to deal with this pain. For Tara, it has only been 2 years since Serendipity was wed. Still 8 more until she dies. Zagreus has no reason to burden this onto her sister, especially now that Tara had started making her own family with Alexander. As time passes, Zagreus starts to contemplate the moral for if there is something that they could do, some way to save Serendipity. Going back and changing time, it didn't seem like the best idea. Zagreus was sure that there must have that they must have affected time before, but they didn't think they ever majorly changed it, and so the idea of going back and doing so, preventing someone from death, it scared them. It was just Zagreus' luck that things were bound to go wrong in the present too. Some cruel Muni citizens had stolen a magic artifact and were threatening to use it in the kingdom and eradicate monsters if the Queen Meteora did not step down. Terra, still inexperienced with magic, decided for some dumb reason that it was somehow something she had to get involved with. She confronted the hooligans with their inexperienced but powerful magic, and they, with no idea how to control the power they held in their hands. Zagreus was too late and did not get there in time for Terra to activate her power and blast the hooligans, who then blasted back. Both parties were burned from the magic, but Terra managed to soldier on through the pain and retrieve the destroyed magical artifact and knock the hooligans out. Right as Zagreus was running up to stop her and help, Terra's magic went haywire in a reaction to the artifact, and she promptly passed out. Zagreus held the body of their sister and cried, worrying that she wouldn't be okay. They read her pulse though, she was okay, for now. So they ran her back to the castle to get the proper help. Zagreus only hoped that they wouldn't lose their sister as well. When Z got there, the doctors and nurses were ready and took Terra off to the private room to be healed. Z waited outside, terrified for what would happen next. The waiting felt like it would never end. Eventually, Star and Marco ran up to see their daughter, but Z stopped them before they could go inside. Z had nowhere for their anger to go, for so long. Their anger at so much of the world, and so they let it out between the two kind butterflies who had let them in. How could you let this happen? Why wouldn't you stop her? You know her magic is hard to control. It should have been you out there dealing with the criminals, Z shouted and yelled, transferring all their anger that they could manage. When they were done, they took a breath and panted, looking up at the two butterflies in front of them. They were growing in shock, and Z had known they messed up, so before either of them could say anything, Z ran. Z would return that night, still scared, but the fear of losing their sister overcame it. They snuck back into the castle and ran to Terra's room, where Terra was laying in her bed, hurt but okay. Z watched Marco and Star confront their daughter, and Terra hugged them back. Something sick entered Z's throat, watching them. They felt sick watching Terra depend on anyone but them. They scared themselves for having this feeling and tried to dismiss it. Once Star and Marco had left Terra's room, Z entered. Zagreus had hugged Terra and had told her how scared they had been. Terra hugged them back and told them that everything would be okay. The two siblings then talked mindlessly about anything and everything, just whatever they could think of that could clear and brighten the atmosphere. It was while mindlessly rambling that Z decided to bring up their dream world, for why not share a dream with someone that you love? Z told of a world without magic, where they could all live happily together. Z said they could change things, that Terra, Z, and Serendipity should just all run away together and make this world come true. Z slipped and mentioned Serendipity's death, and said that in their world she would not die because she would never have to have picked up the wand, how in their world there would be no bad guys, and everything would be at peace and be safe. As he spoke, they got deeper and deeper into their anger, and foretold that the use of magic was cruel, that people who use it for evil things, and that it needed to be gotten rid of. Z spoke of the world, that they had the power to create, they said. All they had to do was do it, and would Terra like to join them? Terra looked at them in horror and shock after hearing all they had to say. You can't just change the world to be your dream, she yelled. You can't just take me and Serendipity because you're scared of this world. It's not the magic that's evil, but the people that use it for evil forces. And if Z was planning on holding the timeline captive to become their dream, then maybe they were one of those evil forces that needed to be sorted out. Z stared back in shock and hurt, horrified that Terra would call them evil. Terra looked back at them in regret and began to apologize, but Z wouldn't hear it. It was already said, and Z's anger built up that they accidentally sent a sonic wave of magic at Terra, knocking her down. Terra fell, now even more hurt than before, and Z realized what they had done. Maybe Terra was right. Maybe they were an evil force. They were too scared, and so ran away from before they could hurt Terra more. Z felt like they had betrayed their home. They had blown up everything they had left. And now there was nowhere for them to go. Nothing for them to do. They stayed at the castle, but watched from the shadows. They watched Terra cry to her parents about Z's disappearance. They watched the people search for them, and even though they were right there, they watched them give up looking. They watched Tara move on from them, and how cruel that felt. Z watched Tara with her friends, and that sickening feeling continued to grow. Z should be the only one Tara depends on and has that smile with, and then again, Z wasn't there for Tara to depend on. Z felt himself laughing with tears while they watched the world continue to turn. Z knew they had messed up. They had messed up all their relationships. They had needed to fix it, but how? The only thing Z could think of was their dream. But Tara had told them that if it was wrong, wasn't she always right? Z darkened as they realized they didn't care anything to have their family back. Once Z had accepted that maybe they were one of those evil forces, that they were going to change the world, their mind opened to all the possibilities. They felt themselves cackle for all the ways that things could be better, all the things they could fix, all the things that would be theirs. Tara was going to depend on them. Serendipity would not die. Z would have both of their loves, and everything would be fine. Z started to formulate a plan to rewrite time. And that was part 4, The Origin of Fate, Chapter 4, A Magic Cursed World. And that is so far where we have left off, because there's a lot more backstory needing to be built up before part 5 can come out. And I'm so excited to release part 5. I'm hoping I can release it soon, because it has been way too long, I feel like, since part 4 came out. So I'm just really excited. And all the support I've been getting has really been motivating me to get back into writing it. So thank you guys for all the support and for reading my stories and stuff. There is a couple more stories. Like, we are going to tackle the hit list mystery and the Lost Girl's home story, but we're not going to tackle that today. That'll have to be another day. But we will get back to that. But thank you guys for listening, and that's where we're going to end it for today. I hope you all have enjoyed, and the stories weren't too dark, and maybe you're excited for the next part. Yes! Yes. Thank you guys for listening so much, and I'll see you next time. Have a great rest of your days. I hope I didn't stutter and sniffle too much. I could feel myself getting a little stuffy. Thanks, guys. See you all next time. Da 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 da.